Women over 60, listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to share will transform how you look and feel. Hair experts who specialize in mature clients have identified specific haircuts that consistently make women over 60 look younger, fresher, and more vibrant. Not through trying to look 20 again, but through strategic cuts that work with your hair's current texture, enhance your features, and create the illusion of volume and vitality that can fade with age. The harsh truth is that many women over 60 are wearing hairstyles that are actively aging them. Cuts that are too long and thin, too short and severe, too dated in their styling, or simply wrong for their current hair texture and face shape. We hold on to lengths that no longer serve us, or we default to cuts that feel safe but actually make us look older and more tired than we are. Here's what's different about haircuts after 60. Your hair has changed. It's likely thinner, possibly grayer, definitely has different texture than it did decades ago. The cuts that worked beautifully in your 30s and 40s may now be pulling you down literally and figuratively. But the right cut, one that's designed specifically for mature hair and faces, can take years off your appearance instantly, without any color, without extensions, just through strategic cutting that creates the illusion of fullness, movement, and lift that can fade with age. Celebrity hairstylist Sally Hershberger says the right haircut can make you look 10 years younger instantly. It's the most powerful anti-aging tool available, and it's completely non-invasive. The haircuts we're discussing today are exactly that. Strategic cuts that work with mature hair to create youthful vitality without trying to recreate your 20-year-old self. If you've been struggling with thin, lifeless hair, if you're not sure what cut would actually flatter you now, if you're ready to understand which specific cuts make women over 60 look younger and why they work, you're in the right place. This channel is dedicated to practical advice that actually works for our age. Consider subscribing if you want honest guidance about what makes you look your best now, not what worked decades ago. We're building a community of women who understand that the right haircut is transformative at any age. Haircut number 1, the textured lob. A long bob that hits somewhere between chin and collarbone length with strategic face framing layers. This cut works because it creates the illusion of fullness through layers, while the length provides enough weight to prevent the wispy, thin look that very short hair can have when hair is fine or thinning. Celebrity hairstylist Chris McMillan explains why this works. The lob is universally flattering because it's long enough to have body and movement, but short enough that the weight doesn't pull down thin hair. The face framing layers create softness around the face, which is incredibly anti-aging, and the texture throughout prevents that flat, lifeless look. Margaret had been wearing her hair past her shoulders for decades, but as it thinned with age, it just looked stringy and dragged her features down. When she cut it to a textured lob with layers framing her face, the transformation was immediate. The length hitting around my collarbone created this lift that I hadn't had in years, Margaret explained. The layers around my face softened my features, and the texture throughout made my hair look thicker and more vital. People told me I looked 10 years younger. Linda had worn very short hair for years, thinking it was more appropriate at her age. When she grew it out to a lob with texture and face-framing layers, she was amazed. The slightly longer length actually made me look younger because it gave my hair enough body to have movement, and the layers around my face were so softening. They drew attention to my eyes and cheekbones in ways my shortcut never did. Why this works? Length between chin and collarbone creates optimal body without weight pulling down thin hair. Layers throughout create texture and movement, preventing flat appearance. Face framing layers starting around cheekbone or jawline create softness that's universally anti-aging. Texturizing creates the illusion of fullness. Best for Women with fine to medium hair texture who want length without stringy look. Anyone wanting softness around the face. Those with thinning hair who need volume illusion. Transitioning from very long or very short hair. Haircut number 2. The modern pixie with longer top and textured pieces. The second haircut that makes women over 60 look dramatically younger is the modern pixie. But this isn't the tight, severe pixie of decades past. This is a pixie with significant length on top, textured throughout, with pieces that can be styled different ways and create softness rather than severity. Celebrity hairstylist Ted Gibson explains, "The old pixie was tight, uniform, and incredibly aging because it exposed every line and created harshness. The modern pixie has length and texture on top, softer sides, maybe longer pieces around the ears or nape, and it's all about creating softness and movement rather than that helmet-like effect." Dorothy had worn a tight, short pixie for years, thinking it was wash and wear practical, but it was actually aging her significantly. When she worked with a stylist who understood modern pixie cuts, the transformation was remarkable. "My old pixie was short all over with no texture. It just sat there like a cap. The new cut has length on top that I can style with volume, textured pieces around my face, and it's been cut to work with my hair's natural texture. I look 10 years younger, and it's actually easier to style." Ruth was nervous about going short, but her thinning hair looked wispy at longer lengths. The modern pixie with longer textured top gave her fullness she couldn't achieve with length. The key was having enough length on top to create volume and height, which lifts everything. The textured pieces around my face keep it from looking severe or masculine. It's feminine, modern, and makes me look vibrant. Why this works? Length on top allows for volume and styling versatility that creates lift. Textured cutting throughout prevents that dated, tight, uniform look. Longer pieces around face create softness and femininity. Works with natural texture rather than requiring constant styling. Creates height at crown, which is universally youthful. Best for women with fine or thinning hair who struggle with volume at longer lengths, those wanting low maintenance but modern style, anyone with natural wave or texture that works well short, women with strong facial features who can carry shorter styles. Have you been nervous about trying a shorter cut? Share your concerns in the comments. Haircut number 3, the shaggy bob with curtain bangs. The third haircut that makes women over 60 look younger is the shaggy bob, a chin to shoulder length cut with lots of layers and texture throughout, paired with curtain bangs that frame the face. This cut creates incredible movement, masks thinning, and the curtain bangs specifically are anti-aging magic around the face. Celebrity hairstylist On Cotran notes, "The shaggy bob is having a moment because it works for mature hair better than almost any other cut. The layers create volume illusion, the texture prevents that flat look, and curtain bangs frame the face beautifully while being much easier to manage than traditional bangs." Helen had avoided bangs her entire life, thinking they were too high maintenance. When her stylist suggested curtain bangs with a shaggy bob, she was hesitant but willing to try. The curtain bangs were game-changing. They draw attention to my eyes, soften my forehead, and because they part in the middle and sweep to the sides, they're so much easier than traditional bangs. The shaggy layers throughout give my thin hair so much more body and movement. Patricia had been wearing a blunt bob that was making her look severe and actually emphasizing how thin her hair had become. The shaggy bob with layers throughout completely changed her appearance. The layers create this illusion that I have way more hair than I actually do, and the movement, my hair actually bounces now instead of just hanging there. It's taken years off my face. Why this works? Multiple layers throughout create volume illusion and movement even in thin hair. Shaggy texture prevents the flat, lifeless look that ages. Curtain bangs specifically frame the face, draw attention to eyes, soften forehead lines without the maintenance of full bangs. Length is versatile, can be worn smooth or textured. The undone nature of the cut looks effortless and modern. Best for women with fine to medium hair who want maximum volume illusion, anyone wanting face framing without commitment of full bangs, those who like a slightly edgy, modern look, women whose hair has wave or texture that works with shaggy styling. Haircut number 4 is the long layers with side-swept bangs. The fourth haircut that makes women over 60 look younger is maintaining longer length, shoulder length or slightly below, but with strategic long layers throughout and side-swept bangs. This works for women whose hair still has decent thickness and who prefer not to go shorter but need the cut to be strategic to avoid looking dated or weighed down. Hairstylist Chris Appleton explains, long hair can absolutely work after 60 if it's cut correctly. The key is layers that create movement and prevent that heavy one-length look, and side-swept bangs that soften the face without the severity of blunt bangs or the exposure of no bangs. Linda loved her longer hair but recognized it was looking dated with its one-length, no-layers approach. When she added long layers starting around chin length and blending down, plus side-swept bangs, the difference was remarkable. The layers gave my hair life. It moved instead of just hanging. The side-swept bangs softened my face and drew attention to my eyes. I kept my length, but it looked completely modern and youthful. Margaret had been wearing her hair long and pulled back constantly because she didn't know how to style it, and it felt heavy. Strategic long layers changed everything. The layers removed so much weight that my hair actually had body and movement for the first time in years. I could wear it down and it looked intentional and styled instead of just long and heavy. Why this works? Long layers create movement and prevent the dated, heavy one-length look, removes weight while maintaining length. Side-swept bangs soften face and forehead without high maintenance of full bangs. Creates dimension and interest rather than flat appearance. Allows for versatile styling. Can be worn straight, wavy, or up. Best for women who want to maintain longer length, those with enough hair thickness to carry length without looking thin, anyone wanting face softening without the commitment of full bangs, women who like styling versatility. Haircut number 5. The asymmetrical bob with longer front pieces. The fifth haircut that makes women over 60 look younger is the asymmetrical bob, shorter in back, longer in front, with the front pieces typically hitting around chin length or below. This cut creates interest through its shape, provides lift in back where hair often flattens with age, and the longer front pieces frame the face beautifully. Celebrity hairstylist Sally Hershberger notes, "The asymmetrical bob is incredibly flattering for mature women because the shorter back creates lift and volume where you need it most, and the longer front pieces create that face-framing softness that's anti-aging. The asymmetry itself looks modern and intentional rather than dated symmetrical cuts." Dorothy had worn a standard bob for years, but it was flat and aging. The asymmetrical version, with shorter, textured back and longer front, transformed her look. The shorter back gave me volume and lift I'd never had. My hair doesn't flatten at the crown anymore, and the longer pieces in front frame my face and draw attention to my best features. It's modern, interesting, and makes me look dramatically younger. Ruth was nervous about the asymmetry. Would it look strange or unbalanced? Her stylist showed her how the graduation from back to front was subtle, but created incredible shape. It doesn't look extreme or weird. It looks intentional and sophisticated. The back has body, and the front has those feminine face-framing pieces. It's the most flattering haircut I've ever had. Why this works. Shorter back creates height and volume at crown where hair tends to flatten with age. Longer front pieces frame face and create softness around features.
The asymmetry itself looks modern and intentional rather than dated symmetrical cuts. Graduation creates natural movement. Works well with various textures. The shape itself draws eye in flattering ways. Best 4. Women wanting modern, interesting cut that's still classic, those needing volume at crown, anyone with flatter back of head that needs lift, women comfortable with slightly edgy styling, those wanting low-maintenance style with built-in shape.
Haircut number 6. The shoulder grazing length with feathered ends. The 6th haircut that makes women over 60 look younger is the shoulder grazing length, hitting right at or just past shoulders with feathered, textured ends rather than blunt or one length. This length is incredibly versatile and flattering, and the feathered ends create movement and prevent that heavy, dated look. Hairstylist Sam Villa explains, shoulder grazing length is magic for mature hair because it's long enough to have body and femininity, short enough that weight doesn't pull down thin hair, and the feathered ends create movement and softness that's incredibly youthful. It's also the easiest length to style and maintain. Helen had been wearing her hair blunt at shoulder length, and while the length itself was good, the blunt ends were making it look heavy and dated. When her stylist added feathering and texture to the ends, the transformation was immediate. My hair suddenly had movement and life. The feathered ends created this softness that made everything look lighter and more youthful. Same length, completely different effect. Patricia discovered this cut after struggling with hair that was too long and thin. The shoulder grazing length with feathered ends gave her the best of both worlds. It's long enough that I feel feminine and can pull it back if I want, but short enough that it has body and doesn't look thin or stringy. The feathered ends are the secret. They create movement and prevent that heavy, dated look of blunt cuts. Why this works? Shoulder grazing length is universally flattering, long enough for femininity, short enough for body. Feathered ends create movement and softness that's anti-aging, prevents the heavy, dated look of blunt ends. Length is incredibly versatile for styling, works with most face shapes and hair textures, easy to maintain and style, creates illusion of fullness even in thinner hair. Best for women wanting versatile, feminine length, those transitioning between short and long, anyone wanting easy-to-style cut that looks polished, women with various hair textures, those wanting classic but not dated style. What makes these cuts work? The common principles. Understanding why these specific haircuts make women over 60 look younger reveals principles you can apply regardless of which specific cut you choose. Celebrity hairstylist Chris McMillan summarizes, all anti-aging haircuts for mature women share common elements. They create volume illusion through strategic cutting. They incorporate movement rather than rigidity. They frame the face softly, and they work with your hair's current texture rather than fighting it. The key principles that make haircuts look youthful after 60 include creating height at the crown through layers or graduated cutting, which lifts everything and prevents the flat, aging look. Incorporating texture and movement throughout prevents hair from looking lifeless or dated. Face framing elements, whether through layers, bangs, or longer front pieces, soften features and draw attention to your best assets. Working with natural texture rather than fighting it makes styling easier and looks more modern. Margaret learned these principles and could evaluate any haircut based on them. Now I understand why certain cuts work and others don't. It's not random. It's about creating lift, movement, face framing, and working with my hair's actual texture. Armed with these principles, I can communicate better with stylists and make choices that I know will be flattering. The 6 haircuts that make women over 60 look younger. The textured lob with face framing layers, the modern pixie with longer top, the shaggy bob with curtain bangs, long layers with side-swept bangs, the asymmetrical bob, and the shoulder grazing cut with feathered ends
all share common principles. They create volume and lift, incorporate movement and texture, frame the face softly, and work with mature hair's current texture rather than fighting it. At 60 and beyond, the right haircut is one of the most powerful tools you have for looking younger, fresher, and more vibrant. It's not about recreating your 20-year-old hair. It's about strategic cutting that works specifically with mature hair and faces to create the illusion of fullness, the softness that flatters, and the modernity that keeps you looking current. If this conversation helped you understand which cuts might work for you, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe and join our community of women committed to looking their best at every age. We're having practical conversations here about what actually works. Until next time, consider which of these cuts might transform your look. Find a stylist who understands cutting mature hair, and remember that the right haircut can take years off your appearance instantly.